second. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. We've been going through some beautiful material on the Noahide laws and their related mitzvahs and the details, and so it's a joy. We're in the do not murder category, but it's a lot of details, so let's just jump right in and say hello. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz, so good to be with you. I'm going to turn the class over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, God. Good to be here. Welcome, everybody. So notwithstanding, I'm not able to share the screen. You have to give me the okay there. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, I want to share with you. No, that's not it. Oh, that's something else. I have to kill that. See, over here. Okay. Share the screen, try again. All right. I wanted to try before I get back into the bird chart. I just wanted to show you something I tried today. Well, I tried with GPT, like all the rage is artificial intelligence, and there's a small school near where I live for kids, teenage boys that are off the beaten path. Let's say they're not in the regular thing. Some of them have faith problems. Some of them have learning problems, whatever. So they need a little special attention. And I had some extra time, so I thought I'd go over there and volunteer some time. And so I wound up speaking to a kid, and he had an assignment to write for the school bulletin something about Sukkot. So we're discussing with him. I was trying to draw him out as to what he knows and what kind of thing he could write. And then when I got home, I thought, gee, I should have got him. He's the young guy. He's the one that's supposed to know these things. But I know that there's AI, there's ChatGPT, and I wondered if I could do something with that. So I did. I came home and I asked ChatGPT this question from Jewish literature. Collect all the sets of three associated with the holiday of Sukkot, which is coming up, and make sense of them. So they said the holiday of Sukkot, also known as the Feast of Tabernacles, it's starting on the 15th day of the month, is a significant Jewish holiday that lasts for 7 days, 8 in the diaspora. That's not quite true. It lasts for 8 days, 9 in the diaspora. I just realized they made a mistake there. And is associated with several sets of threes. These sets of threes represent different aspects of the holiday significance of observance. So the first one is the three pilgrimage festivals. Sukkot is one of the three pilgrimage. You got Passover, you got Shavuot, which is the Sinai event. And they're called pilgrimage events because during these festivals, Jewish people not traditionally, but when we had a temple, made a pilgrimage to the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And then they say they're a reminder of the agricultural and historical aspects of the Jewish faith. And then there's three components, three primary components. We go into a booth, temporary hut. We eat out there, we sleep out there, try and live out there. Lulav and etrog is the four species that we take in our hands during that holiday. And then there's rejoicing. We have a special, every holiday is a rejoicing time, but there's especially on this holiday, there's rejoicing. So there's these three things. And then there's the three fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They're traditionally believed to visit your home during the festival of Sukkot, with each one staying for 2 days. This is a bit of a misleading because it's not only them three, it's a different one each day, and starting with Abraham, and also Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and David. So there's more than, there wasn't just the three. And then they got the three themes of Sukkot. It's agricultural because it's the harvest time. It's historical because remember, it says in the Torah that it commemorates that God made us live in Sukkot during the 40 years in the wilderness, the desert, and it's spiritual time of self-reflection, spiritual growth. I mean, you can say that about anything. So that's I think that's just a stretch, and um, and these three sets serve to remind Jewish people of their history, the faith, the connection with the physical and spiritual aspects of their lives. Nothing particular there. So I was a little disappointed. So I asked them, I told them, add that Sukkot is the third holiday in the month of the secret. Because I was talking to this kid and I said, well, like, what do you know about Sukkot? He says, well, it's coming up soon. There's three, there's Rosh Hashanah, there's Yom Kippur, and there's Sukkot all in the same month. So that's true too. Um, and then I try to get him back to the pilgrimage festivals. I don't think he knew what a pilgrimage was, but he knew about the temple. So, um, so I asked him to add this thing that it's the third holiday in the month of Tishrei, and that it's composed of three types of days, and that a sukkah needs a minimum of three walls. So it said, "Oh, sure, I can add that." So it added that there's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and it said it picked up. I didn't really, I don't know if I emphasized this. Three types of days. Okay, so pick that up. There's the um, um, three types of days. The first 2 days are considered Yom Tov holy days, where special prayers and festive meals are observed. Well, that's not what makes them special. What makes them special is you can't work on those days. You can't do creative labor, for the most part, except for cooking. And then the following days, intermediate, known as Kol Hamod, are semi-festive in that you can work, but you should not work just like regular. And then it goes back to holy days on the last 2 days. But there's also in between a Hoshana Rabbah, which is the seventh day, and it's a special prayers and customs, including beating of the willow branches. They completely missed the Simchas Torah, which is famous, the last day. The Torah calls it Shmini Atzeres, the eighth day of restraining or holding back, and in the diaspora, it's 2 days, and the second day has a special character of Simchas Torah, where we finish reading the Torah for the year and start over again. And in Israel, they do that all in the one day, Simchas Torah and Shmini Atzeres. So they missed that. And then it got to the three walls. The sukkah, to fulfill the commandment of dwelling in the sukkah, it has to have a minimum of three walls. And these walls can be made of various materials, but they have to be sturdy enough to withstand normal weather conditions. That's correct. Fourth side is left open, or partially covered. So the symbolic connection with the temporary dwellings. No, it could be just a solid. That's not what's important. It's really the roof that's reminiscent of the temporary dwellings, because it's made out of vegetation. It's not solid. So it added some things there. And then I wanted it to synchronize these ideas with the universal experience of threes in terms of three dimensions, three states of being, three natural lapses of time, three persons to whom we relate. And so it's, oh yeah, I could do that. And where does it go here? Let's see. Oh, I can't get there. Oh, here it is. So it sort of just picked up, but I didn't, not as good as I wanted to. But no, so then I asked it, name some other sets of three from other religions. And so I knew to pick up Holy Trinity. But as I didn't know these other things because I'm not that familiar with them. But I just thought I wanted to run through this, that like the three, it's universal. Everybody comes to threes because of this natural, it's a universal concept of threes, the state of being, and the three section of time, three-dimensional world, and many other aspects that we need three things to breathe and to eat and to drink and so on. So it's part of existence. Now we have in Jewish teachings a famous phrase that the world rests on three pillars: Torah, avoda, which is service, and gemilas chasadim, which is kindness or helping each other, and so you find this in every one of them. Here you got faith, hope, and charity, or love, which is faith being the well, you could ascribe this. This I would say, and my contention is that everybody's taking it from the original. Is we're just manifesting what was original, and everybody else has their version because they all had the same experience. They come from the same source. So faith could be the Torah, and hope could be the service, or vice versa. Really, hope is more the Torah as what you're pining for, and faith is your service, and charity, of course, is what you loving kindness. But in Hinduism, so they have the same thing. They have these three gods: the Creator, the Preserver, the Shiva, and Savta, goodness, passion, and ignorance, Tama. So that sounds like Tame, ignorance. It's like I bet you there's a connection there between the impurity of Tame and the ignorance. And passion, of course, is your energy level. And goodness is your rationalization. And Buddhism has the three jewels, and four noble truths. But the third truth represents the cessation of suffering, and the fourth truth points to the Eightfold Path as the way to achieve it. So it's really three, and then four goes into eight. And then Islam has three levels of faith, and their submission, that would be our second one, avoda, faith, that would be the Torah, and Isan, excellence, would probably be relative to excellence. You measured excellence in terms of kindness to others, and then they have three holy months. And Sikhism has three, which is meditation in God's name. That would be Torah. Earning an honest living. That would be working, avoda, service, and sharing with others is, very close to what we have. And here we have the mirror, the sword, and jewel. I wouldn't be able to ascribe those, but purity, bravery, and wisdom. Wisdom being Torah. Excuse me. Purity might be the to the world at large, and bravery is you're willing to sacrifice. You're brave enough to submit or to give up things. And Native American spirituality, the upper world, the physical world, and the lower world. Everybody deals with these. It's like so thing, and I think that it's like that because, like I say, it's just let's call it corrupted, or not as accurate as Torah versions of human experience, of the facts of humans experienced God, experienced closeness to God, but misunderstood the message in some ways, but still retain that idea of three. So I found that interesting. I just thought I'd share that with you. If nobody has any comments, I'll go back to where we were, which is the murder chart. And we got to removing danger and do not retain danger. Am I right, Dan? Oh, you can't. Oh, okay. So just a minute. So I have to stop the share here and then go back to the share here. Is that it? Yeah, you see it now? Okay. So on okay. Okay, then we're gonna come down here. So we've established the preciousness of life, that it's the creative power of humanity to create, not destroy. So now we have an extra mitzvah: do not withhold emergency care. So you need this because you're not murdering the guy. You did nothing, but you're there. You have a remedy for them. A doctor, or you have a rope to save them, or a life buoy, or whatever it is. You can pull them out of a pit. So you're not allowed to walk on by, to ignore it. You have to help preserve your life. Now, today, this becomes especially significant with all our medical interventions and so on. It can even get too dicey, but nevertheless, it's not as new as you might think. It's always been the case that towards the end of life, there's things you can provide: food, drink, change bandages, whatever, and people are in pain, and it can be difficult sometimes. But we certainly don't kill them, but we don't allow the physical life to end when we can help it. Now, there's a whole gray area when they're in terrific pain and they deny any assistance you'll give them. They can refuse to eat or drink, and or take medication. So there's a lot of Torah, a lot of discussion on what to do in situations like that. But let's just take the obvious case, or the easy case, that you're able to help them. They want to help. So you're not allowed to ignore, you're not allowed to pass that by, because it's a human with the ability to create, that God put them here to create. And so you have a role to play in that, as we all do with each other. We're all helping each other create all the time in the way we interact. So here specifically could save the life. So it just makes sense that you would do it now. What the question we've been dealing with is it critical or let's say optional? Now, he does discuss it in the Divine Code, but I don't think you can say that this would be equal. It's something you should do, but I don't know if you would call it a violation of do not murder, in that it would be like a capital crime. So there's different levels of responsibility for everybody on these issues, and I don't think this would not be a capital crime. So because it's in the Divine Code, maybe I'll just say non-capital to distinguish it. But it's certainly something that ought to be in our arsenal, in our yeah. Right. So the next one is, do not spread tales about a person. Now here, this one might go back up to a notch up. Maybe I should switch the order. I guess the reason I put this here, do not withhold emergency care, is because we just had danger. So it follows from that to remove danger from your home, not to retain danger in your home. And so withholding emergency care is in the same ballpark, I think. But here, you've brought it into your home, or you've allowed it to stay in your home because it's your environment. So you're creating a physical risk. You have a danger in your home. You're inviting people in. You're allowing them to come in unaware. So you're more at fault in that case. Whereas withholding emergency care, that's something you ought to do if you can. But you didn't bring the guy into that spot, so you can't be held responsible for that situation. You're just responsible to help it. But here, with spreading tales, that's you. You are harming someone. So this one is your in the sense that of destroying human creativity. When you spread tails, you destroy their status. You can destroy their business. You can destroy their reputation. You can destroy the way people relate to them and their ability to influence others and a whole slew of things. So it's really very destructive, very, very destructive. And so I would equate that with murder, just like you're not murdering their physical life, but you're murdering their human status as a human being, and it's devastating. And he discusses it in 374. So I will call that critical. Oh, let's see. Any comments on that?
Yeah, but I agree with you.
Okay. So and there and
Rabbi,
yeah,
I have some clarification wants to clarify.
right.
So the do not spread no, do not withhold emergency care, right?
Yeah.
I know it applies only for a person, but what is your stand about what's your stand about Israel supporting Gaza uh in spite of supporting them with emergency care and yet Gaza is still, firing rockets towards Israel. So
Good point. Well, that's it's both you can I hold it up as an example of the holiness of the people of Israel, that even though there's so many people trying to kill them, nevertheless when they find an actual victim that's suffering, so they will give them the best medical care they have to save their lives. Maybe even a combatant that they capture, and this has become actually this has passed into general conduct, or if not widespread conduct, at least widespread acknowledgement that it ought to be the conduct. They have the Geneva Conventions that when you capture a prisoner of war, you have to give them you have to feed them, and you have to look after them, you have to provide them for certain basics of necessity. So that's what everybody will say is the right thing to do. Whether they actually do it or not is another question. Israel is famous for the level of care they provide, and even with warring nations like I know, like in Syria, there was a lot of saber rattling. There, people are. A couple of years ago, I remember there was terrible times in Syria, and they were aiming rockets at us, sending rockets at us, but yet there were people that couldn't. The inhabitants of Syria, the citizens, when they got very sick, they would cross over into Israel to get medical care because they knew that the Israelis would look after them and give them excellent medical care, and they did. And also, whenever there's
you're in Ontario, right, Rabbi? You're in Ontario. Apparently, there's like 140,000 New York state people that because of the costs of, say, having a baby in the United States, they will go over the border into Canada just to take advantage of the free health care too.
Right. Yeah, so it's in other words, it's not only Israel, but it's an idea that has passed into at least Western society, that they've taken it on, this idea, and it cost them. Like right now, they're dealing with they're really under the gun because they're looking after all the immigrants. They're coming in illegally. They're not supposed to be there. Nobody invited them. They're breaking the law to be there. But once they're there, they feel compelled to give them $500 hotel rooms. $500 a night hotel rooms is part of the problem, and they're doing their best. I don't know if it's the best, but they're doing quite a bit to feed them and house them and look after them. So, and there's quite a bit of anger about it too. So that's a problem. That's a problem. But nobody's saying let's just lock them up and let them starve to death. They're just saying let's stop them from coming in, or even deport them. But not while they're here, while they're under our roof. They obviously have to be fed and housed and taken care of. So that wasn't always like that. So that's the same thing as that's with emergency care. They need the basic necessities of life, and that's emergency care. So that's a very good example of the same idea. I should spend a minute, or those that may not be aware, about spreading tales about a person, exactly what that is, and my remedy, my good remedy for staying away from this. This is a terrible crime to spread tales about a person. First of all, it doesn't mean false tales. It means even if it's the truth. There's 3 levels. One is spreading lies about somebody. One is spreading bad news about somebody. You know, it's the truth, but it shows them in a bad light. It's things that they do that are not nice. You don't have to spread that around. And then there's a sort of in between where you're just trying to say over stories that will create enmity between 2 people. So you tell over like he did something, and the other person, is opposed to that. So you're just going to create a fight. So you're guilty of that. Now, people are very, very prone to sinning like that, sinning with those faults. Talking over about, talk about a business. I went there and it was broken. They didn't give me a refund, or it was dirty. The floor was dirty. Or or the clerk was rude to me. All the smallest things, and you just feel justified to complain about life, about how people hurt you or insult you or don't meet your criteria, they weren't there for you, what you'd like, and but it's a terrible crime. You have no business spreading the news like that. You should just spread good news. However, and it's very hard. That's very hard to maintain that level of happiness and positivity about the world. There's plenty that's not so positive, and yet you're not allowed to talk about it. So here's my remedy: don't use names. If you say, I was in a store and the clerk was very rude to me, and they said, they get all the details. As long as you don't name the store, and especially you don't name the clerk, then you're okay, because you haven't pointed at a person. Whereas you can, you can say, I met somebody and they cut me off driving. As long as you don't have the name, that's fine. You can, in fact, sometimes it's a mitzvah, because you go, watch out the way you drive. Watch out, you can run into this problem. So you're advising somebody else. But as soon as you start naming people, now you're attaching an identity to the bad news. That's what makes it a big crime. And so the simple solution, and of course, don't try and, just because I didn't say the name, but you know who I mean. That's no good. They can't know who you mean. So you can say whatever story you like over, as long as they don't know who you're talking about, then you can talk to your heart's content, and it's no problem. But make sure nobody knows who you're talking about. You can ask me a question if it's a business, especially if it's like a public company, like let's say Shoppers, or and something went wrong, or Winners, or something like that. Maybe you could say you didn't talk about a person, and you didn't destroy anybody's livelihood, and you're just talking about a certain thing. I'm not going to. It's better not to, but I wouldn't condemn somebody for having done so, because it's not a particular person. But especially be very careful when you're talking about a particular person, not to identify a person with a bad behavior. Terrible,
Rabbi,
terrible.
is this the same with Lashon Hara?
That's Lashon Hara. That's what it's called, Lashon Hara.
Oh,
The Lashon Hara is one of these 3 things. It's Lashon Hara literally means bad tongue or evil tongue. That's a literal translation. but it's also it's even worse when you're spreading lies. You're telling a lie, but lashon hara itself, that particular aspect refers to when you're telling the truth. You didn't lie. You told exactly what happened, but still, because you said the name, it's a terrible, terrible crime.
Mm. I thought it's only applicable to the Jewish people.
No, it's because they talk about it in the Divine Code. Yeah, it's universal, and it's you're
Oh,
ruining somebody's life, you're ruining their reputation, um, and you're also I explained that one of the things that makes it so bad is that when you can point to someone who behaves in a terrible way, so one of two things can happen. The person that's listening to you will say, "Oh, I didn't realize that people behave that badly. If they're behaving that badly, so I can too. Or why should I be better? Why should I have to behave better than that? I'll do the same thing." So you bring them down. They were behaving nicely, and now you give them the reason not to behave nicely. So that's a terrible result. And the other thing that could happen is that when they hear how badly somebody behaved, they could say, "Oh, I would never do that," and then uh, they stop trying to do better, because once they find out that there's people that do this bad thing and they don't, so I'm good enough. I'm good enough. I don't have to improve, and that's terrible too, because people can always improve. We got a lot of growing that we can do, and we'll be very proud of that growing if we would do it. But when you give them a reason not to grow, you destroy their future. So for that reason, it's terrible. So that's why how I understand what makes it such a terrible crime.
Yeah, it
Okay,
destroys three people. It destroys the one
yeah,
listening, and it destroys the one you're talking about, and it destroys yourself.
right. Because you get the crime, and also you're obviously susceptible to the same ideas of behaving in a similar way, just spreading it around. So it's a terrible, terrible thing to do,
Yeah,
but
don't
it's
make
it's
it a
very,
practice, that's for sure.
very hard. That's why I'm very repetitive on that. Don't use names, because you don't have to repeat bad things that are happening in the world. But if you do, if you have to, if you feel you have to, you want to warn somebody about something, but don't use names, because
Yeah,
the names is really
Guri
the
online on YouTube. Guri says, when I'm faced with that, he says, I always tell people that isn't my story to tell, and I just walk away.
right. Very good, very good, very good. It's good to have a standard line in your back pocket that you can call on, and just use that as your defense. That's beautiful. So glad to hear it, and I hope everybody can come up with a similar um,
A plan,
um,
game plan, yeah.
game plan, strategy, whatever. So that's it for tonight. We're up to
Up to
Money
made it
Money.
to a
We got
number
that.
11.
Yeah. Okay.
So are
Very
you good
good.
for tomorrow night, Rabbi?
I'm good for tomorrow night.
All right, folks. So we will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Thank you for everybody attending out there. We'll be back tomorrow for more Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning. Till then, have a wonderful, wonderful evening, everybody. Bye for now.
And if you want, look up the threes in Sukkot.